So apparently we're live. It's us again. This is just kind of in the background for now, just because internally thought that we should have some intro music, which is not wrong, really, is it?
Opinions? Is it coming home? Who knows?
We're getting a vigorous nod from internally in the corner. We'll bring him in a little bit to talk about that. Well, what is now an infamous England game, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. So we've got our full update. Obviously, last time we left you out, we've got halfway through the final set of matches in the group stage. We've now, in fact, got to the end of the first round of 16, so we've got all that to update you on. What else we got, Sam?
So we've got a whole round of 16, and then we're going to be talking about these quarterfinals, which are mind-blowing. And we're also going to talk a little bit about England because, well, there's a lot to talk about. Yeah. There's a lot to talk about.
The other thing, of course, is the pot is back. Why is that, Sam?
The pot's back because now that we know where everyone is placed in the groups, we have got the fourth place finishers who are eligible for that wooden spoon prize. We haven't quite gone and got the wooden spoon yet, but we're going to be making the draw. We may well make the presentation in the next week or so. As always, we've got our handy spreadsheet to hand.
Mm-hmm.
Handy spreadsheet to hand. Also, the Natural Print Solutions World Cup. Well, it's not a wall chart, but we could pin it to a wall, couldn't we?
We could, yeah.
We could.
Internally's kindly been updating that for us and just putting who's where. So speaking of who's where, let's go through the final group stage games. It was an incredibly dramatic one. So just after we did our last update video, we had the final games in group E, F, G and H. E was a more straightforward one. So Brazil won that group, Switzerland second, and that was because Brazil won 2-0 against Serbia, and finally Costa Rica got a point on the board in their final game, 2-2 against Switzerland. So that's Mud and Maps 2, Adam Cohen, Mayhanad Hedi 2, and Nina the Writer 0, Paul Summerfield Wedding Photography 2. Then came the real drama in Group F.
Oh my goodness. And you may have been sort of following either me personally on social media or us on the page, because we had it on in the office on 5 Live.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very dramatic end to Group F. We'll explain why in just a minute, but suffice it to say, I did injure myself by doing a skidding celebration on the carpet of the office.
And you certainly had a run around for quite a while as well.
Yeah. And why did that happen, Mike?
Well, Group F, at the beginning of the game, we had Mexico in first place, Germany in second, Sweden in third, Korea in fourth. However, Mexico lost 3-0 to Sweden. Shocking. Sweden were then top of the group. And it all depended on Germany as to whether Mexico would go out or not. Germany lost to South Korea.
Which is quite strange, because usually Germany's quite dependable.
This is the first time in World Cup history that Germany haven't made it out of the group stage. It's the first time Germany have ever lost to South Korea. So even though this was South Korea's only win of this World Cup, what a magnificent win. And
probably like the first time in history that Manuel Neuer has actually played as a left winger.
Yeah.
As opposed to a goalkeeper.
BBC 5 Live commentary, Chris Sutton was furious that Germany goalkeeper Manuel Neuer had pushed himself forward past his own defenders up to the halfway line. He was then subsequently tackled for the second goal. Unbelievable scenes. Definitely check that out if you haven't seen it.
And crossed over to good old son of Tottenham Hotspur, who
scored there.
Yeah, absolutely beauty of a goal right into an open net.
Absolutely.
So that's what you like to see.
Despite how Group F was heading into that final game, we ended up with Sweden winning the group, Mexico in second, Korea in third, and unbelievably Germany bottom on goal difference.
So, Off the back of that, the actual results for that was it was 2 for Gabriel Beckett of Colchester Boot Camp, nil goals for Karen West Wiley at Barking Enterprise Centre, and then nil goals for Mark Fountain of Fountain Faces, and 3 for Jimmy Lee Photography.
Battle of the photographers there, and there will be another one coming up later.
Oh yes, there will indeed.
So Group G, obviously England's group, going into that final game, we had one of the most redundant games in world football, with England and Belgium both through, and both teams probably thinking they want to avoid coming first because that ends up in the harder side of the draw. As a result, there were 18 changes in total to the 2 lineups.
But admittedly, it wasn't as bad a game as the France-Denmark game, which was appalling.
At least there was a goal, and that goal went to Januzaj of Belgium. So Belgium won that 1-0, which meant England finished second, Belgium finished top. So that was Rachel Richards, uniform 7, losing out 1-0 to Dan Smith Sports and Spinal Physio. The other game in the group saw Tunisia and Panama, so that ended up with Panama, Gail Hoban, Gasparrin Studio 1, Stuart Chaplin, Cyan Marketing, Tunisia's 2. So Tunisia grabbing 3rd place, Panama finishing bottom, as you'd expect.
Yeah,
in their first World Cup.
0 points.
Nil point, but they did score twice.
They did.
World Cup history there.
And the first time was against England. So
England letting Panama score the first ever World Cup in there.
Gracious.
World Cup goal. And finally, Group H. This was our open group.
And boy, did it turn out to be open as well.
Absolutely. So the final game, any of the 4 could have made it through. That's Poland, Senegal, Colombia and Japan. We had matches up of Japan, Giles Ford, Edwards Walk was up against Poland, and that was Have a Go of Hannah. And we had Senegal, Sarah Rossie's Recreation Flowers versus Colombia, Clive Maloney, Get Real About Business.
Now, both of those ended up as 1-0 victories. It was Poland 1-0 against Japan.
And that was their first win of the World Cup.
And it was 1-0 for Colombia against Senegal.
Absolutely. So that actually knocked Senegal out of the place to go through, which saw Colombia finish top of the group, Japan in 2nd, Poland bottom.
And all of these things set up some very, very tasty last 16 games.
Absolutely. So that was the end of the group stage. So briefly, just to go over, before we head into the round of 16, in each group we'll tell you who finished where, and as a result, who is now in our draw for the 4th place marketing prize. So Group A, Uruguay finished top, Russia 2nd, so that's Word Perfect VA top, Beauty Loft 2nd, Saudi Arabia 3rd in the group, Nutribox Meals, and Marketing by Manal 4th in the group and in our prize draw. Group B, do you want to
so that was Spain finishing top, so Natural Print, and then Tony at Chambers Financial finishing 2nd with Portugal. 3rd place, the Islamic Republic of Iran with Jane at VA Wiz, and Morocco with Lisa from Smart PA finishing bottom of Group B.
Absolutely. Group C, we saw France fulfil expectation, finish top of that group, James Hamilton, Elite Business IT. Denmark also fulfil expectation, getting 2nd place, Essex Work Skills, thrilled about that. We had
Peru next.
Yes, Peru in 3rd after winning in their last game, and that was Joe Hower Photography. And bottom of that group, we had the Beauty Spots Australia.
And Group D, we had a little bit of a dark horse coming into the competition. Sally Parkinson Photography finishing top, all 9 points with Croatia. 2nd, Ian Bailey of Kalex Environmental finishing with Argentina there. 3rd place is Hoskin Home Loans with Nigeria, and Ogo finishing bottom of that group with Iceland, but putting in a decent show.
Absolutely, and he's in with a shout for our prize. Group E, we saw Brazil fulfilling expectation, Paul Summerfield Photography top of that group, Switzerland, Mud and Maps finishing 2nd, Serbia, Nina the Writer 3rd, and Costa Rica, or Costa Lot as he first called them, Adam Cohen.
Group F, the controversial grouping with Sweden finishing top, that's Jimmy Lee Photography, Mexico finishing second, that is Mark Fountain. It was Korea Republic finishing third with Gabriel from Colchester Bootcamp, and then bottom of Group F, it was Barking Enterprise Centre's Karen with the Germans.
Absolutely. Group G, as we've already gone over, but just to reiterate, England Uniform 7. Rachel, we actually finished second in that group. Top of the group, Dan Smith Sports Finals Sports and Spinal Physio. Belgium, of course, the Tottenham contingent there. Tunisia getting that third place with Stuart Chaplin Science Media, and fourth Gasbrandt Studio Panama.
And finally, with Group H, we had finishing top of the group Clive Maloney with his Colombia side. Second going through was Giles Ford with Japan. Finishing third was Senegal, which was Sarah Rossi. And finally, bottom of Group H was Poland, and that was Hannah. We'll have a go with Hannah.
So, how happy are you with your team's World Cup? Did you fulfil your expectations? Did you go further? Did you do worse? Let us know in the comments.
I would imagine that everyone who finished third isn't best pleased, because there's no real opportunity for them to shift forward from that.
So obviously our wooden spoon prize is for the 18th finishing bottom of their group. First two going through. So yeah, third very much a...
So shall we draw that now?
Absolutely.
Before we go any further and talk about the last 16, or well indeed the last 16 matches and what we've got coming up over the next couple of days, which is the quarterfinals.
Yep, so this wooden spoon prize is a 90-minute marketing session, and that will be whichever method you prefer, whether that be in person, whether that be on Skype, whether that be over here at your place, wherever.
So we got all of this sorted out in the pot as expected.
Absolutely.
So just to go over the individuals who are in this draw.
So we have Marketing by Manal, we have Lisa Smart PA, we have The Beauty Spot, we have Ogo from Adverto, we have Adam Cohen from Maynard Heady, we have Karen from the Barking Enterprise Centre, we have Gail from Gasbrandt Studio, and we have Hannah Go with Hannah.
So I'm going to
do the duties
of intern Ollie whilst he's on social media duty. Little thumbs up over there. Just so I'll put. I've just got to close that down. Put it's coming up, or 3 Lions on YouTube, and then somehow it's playing or Africa by Toto. Now
there's lions in Africa. There's a link.
Yeah, that just makes sense. Yeah. So Mike's going to draw this now.
Little drum roll from Ollie.
Little drum roll from Ollie.
So wooden spoon prize goes to Adam Cohen, Maynard Heady. That's Costa Rica.
Yep.
So Costa Rica.
Yes, there is a round of applause going on there. Well done.
How are you feeling about that, Adam? You've got that prize. Costa Rica managing to get that draw on the final day. I think that was their only point off the top of my head. But certainly couldn't cope with Brazil, Switzerland and Serbia.
No.
But it's worked out well for you, Adam. So there you go. Sam will be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we've got. That's the sort of takes care of all of the group stages.
Yep. So those of you who finished third or fourth, thank you so much for joining in. Sorry, that's the end of the line for you. Who are you backing now? Probably England, but any individual companies you're backing? Let's hit you with the first round of 16. So, first of all, which teams were drawn against each other? There were some incredible lineups.
The pairing up of these matches was amazing. So, first round of 16 game was France versus Argentina, followed by Uruguay versus Portugal, followed by Spain versus Russia,
host nation of course,
followed by Croatia versus Denmark.
We also had Brazil versus Mexico, Belgium versus Japan, Sweden versus Switzerland, and Colombia versus England. So clearly those first 4 having the stronger teams in there compared to the second 4, and that's actually the route to the final across the board. So hence Gareth Southgate's decision to rest players has probably worked out quite well if England got through.
Interesting as well, there were some absolute amazing matches in this round, and there were 3 which ended up on being decided on penalties.
Absolutely.
So going through this, first of all, first match of the last 16 was France versus Argentina.
Yep.
What a match that was.
The best possible start to a knockout stage. It ended up 4-3 to France.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely amazing.
So James Hamilton, Elite Business, through to the quarterfinals. Ian Bailey, KLX Environmental. I'm afraid that's the end for you. Argentina sort of scraped through their group in the end, and France turned out to be too much for them.
Yeah.
With that 4-3.
Did put up a good fight though.
Absolutely.
And that goal from Angel Di Maria was amazing.
Unbelievable strike.
Well worth checking
Longest
out.
range goal in the tournament so far. That was. Our second game saw the other 2 teams from those groups. So that was Uruguay. Not from those exact groups. Sorry.
No.
So it was Uruguay and Portugal. So that was Luis Suarez's Uruguay versus Ronaldo's Portugal. A big game again. But it actually turned out to be Cavani that stole the headlines in that game, grabbing 2 goals for Janice Gilbert's Word Perfect VA, compared to the 1 goal of Portugal for Tony Baker Chambers Financial Services. So that ended up 2-1 to Uruguay. Ronaldo out in the first knockout round.
Yeah. Then on to our first match, which was decided by penalties. Everyone thought that Spain would absolutely steamroller Russia, and it frankly didn't happen.
No, the most lethargic performance by Spain. So little movement in the final third, so little energy, intensity to get anything going, even in extra time. There was no urgency, and they paid for it because they lost on penalties. Unbelievably, Russia beating a former world champion to knock them out, to see Russia through to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge result for the Beauty Loft and Natural Print Solutions. I'm sure you're gutted. Clearly these decisions to sack the manager did not work out, as his substitutions were quite questionable as well.
Yeah.
He was taking off defensive players for other defensive players, and likewise took off Costa for another striker rather than sacrificing some defensive midfielders. So clearly that didn't pay off, the decision to change manager, but Russia won't care.
No, absolutely not.
The same day, another game decided by penalties.
Yeah. By all accounts, this was actually quite a lethargic game all round, the Croatia versus Denmark game. No one really wanting to make a mistake, even though it started. Was it with how many minutes?
2 goals within the first, I think, 5 minutes.
Yeah,
something like that.
I was going to say 4.
It might have even been 4 or 3. It was an unbelievable start. But then that's where the goal fun ended, really, all the way up into the penalty shootout. And there was some very good goalkeeping in that penalty shootout. Kasper Schmeichel of Denmark, I can't remember the Croatian guy's name, but they each saved, I believe, 2 or 3 penalties, which is unbelievable. But Croatia won it. So we have Sally Parkinson photography through to the next round.
Yeah.
End of the line for Mark Sexton, Essex Work Skills, despite a valiant battle in that game.
And then going through back onto the other side of the draw, with what now probably the team that everyone is now sort of tipping as potential winners. Don't see it myself. But Brazil beating Mexico 2-0. That was 0-0 all the way up until half time.
Yeah, Mexico in the first half looked the more likely to score in that game. Brazil stepped it up in the second half. A tight game, but ended up 2-0 to Brazil. Neymar once again on the floor. And in fact, there's a stat come out. Neymar has spent 14 minutes of this World Cup on the floor.
That's amazing. That's absolutely,
which is just ridiculous.
So as well.
Clearly, people not a fan of that. So yeah, that was the 2-0 win for Paul Summerfield Wedding Photography over Fountain Photo. So that was our first all-photographer knockout game.
Well, it was our second all-photographer matchup as well in the
absolutely.
competition.
So, Founding Photos, thank you for entering. Unfortunately, your time has come to an end in the competition. We then had another very dramatic, incredible game, which fans of either side would have been either ecstatic or gutted about by the end of the game. We saw Dan Smith, Sports and Spinal Physio Belgium, take on Giles Ford, Japan. What happened in that game, Sam?
Oh my goodness. 0-0 all the way up until half time. But 5-goal thriller. Japan coming out strong straight after the break, getting 2 goals. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is amazing. It's a Cinderella story. Only, like, genuinely really excited. I think Hannah was actually quite close to tears at the end of that match because she was
not
so
only
great
did Belgium
for Japan.
get 2 back, but in the 95th minute, with the final kick of the game, Belgium went on a counter-attack and scored to win 3-2 against Japan. Unbelievable scenes.
But just because we're talking about him as well, it's another ex-Spurs player putting the final goal in this time round with Nasser Chadli.
Nasser Chadli came on as a sub. Fair play to Roberto Martinez of Belgium. He made 2 substitutions when they were 2-0 down. He brought on Chadli and Fellaini, both of whom scored, both of whom changed the game. Good management there to rectify a situation.
Yeah, compared with Spanish management, which
yes,
was,
absolutely. So it shows as a small business you've got to be tactile, you've got to be ready to change.
It's good link-up play there.
Absolutely.
Two corner frames.
The final, so that was their Sports and Spinal Physio through, and Giles Ford, Edwards Walk Limited out. We had just yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
No, it was the day before yesterday.
Oh yes, on Tuesday.
We actually had a day off from football yesterday. Shocking, terrible. Didn't know what to do with myself. Jimmy Lee Photography versus Mud and Maps. So who was that? That was
Sweden versus Switzerland.
Yes, Sweden versus Switzerland. The battle of the SW teams from Europe. Didn't turn out to be too thrilling a match. Sweden grabbing that 1-0 win over Switzerland, despite there being Shaqiri and other Premier League players in there for Switzerland. Giroud, ex-Arsenal. And Sweden with a deflected goal, which I think the goalie would have saved, but it's deflected off the Swiss player's leg and went the opposite side of the goal, so I'm sure he'll be gutted. But Sweden probably deserved that win. So that set up Sweden to be playing in the quarterfinal against whoever won the last game, which was, talk us through that.
Colombia versus England, the biggest football match of an absolute generation. And at this point, I think it's only right that we bring in the person in the office who's got the most hope, the man, the myth, the legend, the man behind the camera. Intern Ollie, come on down. Bring your chair.
I don't know where your chair will fit. Just there.
Right, yeah.
If it doesn't fit, you can just kneel next to us.
Yeah.
In the gap.
Yeah. So, as someone that is, shall we say,
hopeful.
I was gonna say slightly younger, but actually considerably younger than both of us. With less experience of England in tournament football. How was that match for you?
A roller coaster.
Yeah.
But good, we won, so that's what matters.
Yeah.
How did we win that then? What happened?
Penalties. We cured it. We cured the horrible penalty thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So during the game, England got a penalty again. Another penalty. What's going on? Harry Kane scored that 1-0 all the way up until 93rd,
yeah,
is it?
It was about 93, 94 minutes in.
Colombia sent forward their goalkeeper and every outfield player for the corner, and Yuri Mina of Barcelona headed the ball in. Pretty much the last kick of the game.
He was phenomenal though, wasn't he?
Unbelievable. He got an injury in that celebration.
Yeah.
And then carried on playing the whole of extra time injured and didn't let in any goals.
So there, got some mixed feelings about the Colombia team.
Yep.
I don't want to mince my words, basically I want to sort of be fair to them and say they were absolutely filthy in the way in which they played.
Yeah.
However, they did have a few real standout players on the pitch. Sanchez, Mina, he was great. But so sort of like very solid and set up at the back. But going forward, starting to look a little bit leggy, a little bit aging against a very young England team.
I mean, Radamel Falcao, I think he's now 32, 33, something like this, and he never had huge amounts of pace anyway. So it was him against 3 centre backs, so he's always going to be outnumbered there. Quadrado, the right winger, struggled to get into the game. He was coming quite deep. But yeah, Colombia generally just were trying to get under England's skin, trying to lure us into some nonsense, really. Colombia apparently feel very hard done by, is the outcome in Colombia, which Diego Maradona agreed with. He reckons Colombia have been hard done by that ref.
Wow.
I don't really think so.
No, I mean, obviously there's bias, actually on both sides, because obviously we're going to be biased sort of supporting England.
What I will say is Harry Maguire, Kieran Trippier, you are idiots for diving. Disgraceful. Why dive? You're getting into their game there. They wanted you to start cheating and start getting involved in nonsense, and you did. And also Henderson, lucky maybe not to be sent off as well.
Yeah.
So
and actually,
we're not without
the person that did headbutt him is lucky not to get.
Yeah,
sent off
absolutely.
As well.
So as much as Colombia were dirty, England did start to do some naughty things in that game, and it did annoy me. But that being said, came out with the penalties.
And we broke the curse.
First time England have ever won a penalty shootout. You should feel honoured.
At the World Cup, yeah.
It's because I was watching, obviously.
I did actually text Ollie on Tuesday night as it went to penalties. I said, get ready for a treat because you're about to see England crash out. Only to retract that statement about 10-15 minutes later, just by texting him saying, this isn't how it usually happens. Which is kind of a real sort of like feeling that we've all got around this competition.
This entire World Cup is insane. I mean, we have now got to the quarterfinals. There is no Italy and Holland, who didn't even make it in the tournament. There's no Argentina, there's no Portugal, there's no Spain, there's no Germany. You know, it's just...
Who's left?
Us.
Who is left?
France, Brazil, England are the only... Oh, and Uruguay are the only former winners, I believe.
That is
still
correct.
in the World Cup.
But then, genuinely, this is wide open. So the quarterfinal matches tomorrow. We got France against Uruguay and Brazil against Belgium. Now,
arguably some of the strongest teams still in the World Cup against each other.
I would certainly say that. And then on Saturday we got Sweden against England. We're going to be in London for that. It's going to be crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Russia versus Croatia. So that's outside of the draw. That's very, very open.
Yeah.
Hypothetically,
hypothetically,
because we can only say this now, just in case, like we do in England on Saturday.
Yeah.
Which of those 4 teams, France, Uruguay, Brazil, or Belgium, would you want in the final?
Would you want in the final?
Yeah, I have my answer and my thoughts behind it because I was talking to a friend of mine about it last night. But I want to see what you think and also what Ollie thinks as well.
I think if England got to the final, which is no guarantee at all here, I'd probably want Uruguay or Belgium. Now I say that because Belgium, a lot of these players play in the Premier League and we know how they play. So we might be able to deal with them a bit better, maybe. Uruguay, because although their strikers are superb and their centre backs are superb, generally the rest of their squad is weaker compared to Brazil, France, etc. So maybe Uruguay, but then that is, all four of them teams very strong.
No, I've got a different answer. Ollie, first of all, France, Uruguay, Brazil, Belgium. Who would you want in the final?
You know what? To make up for shame Belgium, I just would want them to beat Belgium for like the shame of it. Or France, just because that would be quite a thing to win, wouldn't it? Like, imagine beating France in the World Cup, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fair answer. Now, my own personal thoughts.
Yeah.
I've gone more of on a psychological sort of thinking about this.
Right, yeah.
Easily important.
I would take France of those four teams. The reason I wouldn't take Uruguay is because they are playing in a very defensive manner with sort of like a standard 4-4-2, and I think that would frustrate us, and I doubt we'd be able to break it down in the same way we'd be able to with other teams. Psychologically, I think if you're coming up against Brazil, you're coming up against a 5-time winner, and that's a big mountain to overcome. By the same count, thinking about Belgium, we've lost to them. Now, admittedly, that was the Belgium B team.
Yeah, against the B team,
But I think there would, again, still be a psychological barrier to overcome beating Belgium in the final. But France, as good a squad as they are, on our day, I think we could beat them. And I don't think there's as much sort of psychological baggage as perhaps you would get with some of the other teams. So that's my reasoning behind taking France of those four.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got to overcome Sweden. And Sweden are a very physical side. They've obviously got this far. Clearly, we're better off playing them than we are the other half of the draw.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be pushed hard to find the gaps in the Swedish defence there to get through. I think for once England aren't going to get a penalty or a free kick or a set piece. We scored one goal in open play in this entire tournament. Everything else has been a corner, a free kick or a penalty. We're going to have to start to break down teams eventually because they're not all going to give us set pieces endlessly. And then Russia or Croatia is a real open one there because you'd expect Croatia, but with that home advantage of Russia and the form that they're in, that would be an interesting game.
Yeah.
And Croatia did start to look a bit leggy in that game.
Very true. Got a crack in midfield, but outside of that...
So say we did manage to overcome Sweden, we've then got one of them, and if it is Russia and it's the host nation, the crowd is going to be against you there.
But then on the other side of the draw, I'd probably fancy France over Uruguay.
I think narrowly France, just about
because of the depth of quality that they've got.
Yeah,
I can't call Brazil Belgium.
No, I mean the power of Lukaku and that Belgium team, I can imagine causing Brazil defence all sorts of problems. But at the same time, Brazil's attack is insane.
So it's all to play for.
All to play for, and in terms of the businesses still in it, obviously we've talked about the countries and you know who you've got, but for the purpose of everyone else in the draw who doesn't know who's who, so we've got Elite Business IT France versus Janice Gilbert Word Perfect VA Uruguay. We've got Paul Summerfield Wedding Photography Brazil versus Darren Smith Sports and Spinal Physio Belgium.
Yep.
Sam, do you want to say this?
And then we've got Jimmy Lee Photography of Sweden against Rachel Richard Uniform 7, who's England, and finally we've got the Russians, which is Jade Louise Bonik of the Beauty Loft, and the Croatians, which is Sally Parkinson Photography.
Yeah. Ollie, would you be able to just check we're still live, as I'm paranoid that we've been talking to ourselves for the past 10, 15 minutes. We've had a few internet issues here and there. But it looks like we are still live, which is brilliant. So what are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to go all the way? Obviously, those teams in the quarterfinals, once you get one win,
Yeah,
you are through to one of our prize slots.
yeah. So basically, you've got 50-50 chance now of winning a prize.
Yep.
Starting from tomorrow.
90-minute marketing consulting session, same as what Adam has won today, for the semi-finalists, and of course for whoever goes on to win the entire competition, they will have a half-day marketing consulting session.
Days.
So how are you feeling about the draw? Let us know. Thanks for following us as well.
Finally, last question before we wrap it all up this afternoon: is it coming home?
Is it coming home?
Yes.
See you soon, guys.
See you. Bye.